We're going to hear in a moment from our keynote, Stan. That's his prompt to start finding his way over this way. There he is, brother. He's already go. I met him last night, and I fell in love with him. He has a great spirit, wonderful experience. There's not many people you meet that are TEDx speakers, Forbes contributors, and IBM futurists that speak over 250 times a year. In fact, he's leaving. He agreed to come here, and he's getting right on a plane and going somewhere else right after this. So we're blessed to have him. He's the author of 6 books. He's going to tell you all about those. And actually, at the end of his presentation, you're going to hear about some archetypes that might play into this notion of superheroes and superpowers and finding how we can be forces of good to change the world. Stan, we're super grateful to have you. Let's have a warm San Diego welcome for Stan Phelps.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
Yep, cheers. Good morning. This is my family here. I hail from the great state of North Carolina. No one from North Carolina here. That's okay. 5 years ago, I kind of transplanted myself to North Carolina. And if anyone's a fan of HGTV, I did the show House Hunters. So I realize there's not a lot of reality in reality TV. So if you want me to either give you tips on how to pick who the right person is, or if you just want me to ruin reality TV for you, I'm glad to do that. You know, I moved my family because I felt like I had a greater purpose. I really wanted to help shift the paradigm of how people thought about marketing and how they actually thought about business in general. You see, for the first 20 years of my career, everything I did was focused on eyeballs and earlobes. I focused on what's called in marketing impressions. And everything I did was to try to interrupt you to get your attention. And I was a huge part of the problem. I created things that were so large, they were designed to be on the front page of a newspaper or to be on the 10 o'clock, the 10 o'clock news. Let me share a couple examples. I helped create the world's largest logo. I did this out near Area 51 in Nevada. It was so big you could see it from space. And I know that because we shot it with the Google satellite. This created 650 million media impressions. I did things like create a 60-foot tall M&M, and I floated it right into New York Harbor, right in front of Lady Liberty herself. I used to live in the Pacific Northwest. I'm a huge fan of coffee, so this was fun. I helped recreate the original Starbucks for one day in New York City. This was to launch Pike Place Roast. This next one, I had small kids at the time, so this won me points. I put a 40-foot Viking ship into Times Square for Walmart. This was to launch all of the merchandise for How to Train Your Dragon. Now, when I did this one, I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe I kind of jumped the shark. And I realized that I was kind of part of the problem until I did this next event. And in this next event, I gave away a Mediterranean island. Wait, for I can't believe it's not butter. And it gets better, with Fabio. And I realized that, a lot of these programs were successful, but they weren't scalable, they weren't sustainable, and I thought there had to be a different way. And literally 8 summers ago, I had what I call my moment of truth. And here I am. I used to live outside of New York City. I happened to be in town for a networking event. I'm with a colleague. We're having a drink. I'm enjoying, as you only can in Manhattan, a $15 beer, if that's possible. And as we're waiting there, I notice an older gentleman sitting across from me. And every once in a while, I can see him kind of scan the room. It's obvious to me he's waiting for someone. And so after about a half an hour, I start feeling bad for the guy. I lean in just to start conversation with him. I go, excuse me, I go, do you know that we spend 10% of our life waiting? Would you guys agree with that, 10%? Some people think it's more. I know it's true because I once read it online. And he looked at me and he laughed and he said, yeah, he says, I am waiting for somebody. I said, well, obviously they're not on time. And I'll never forget this. He gave me the strangest look and he said, on time? He said, no one in life is ever on time. What do you mean? I've been on time before. Not often. And I'll never forget this. He raised his finger to me and he gave me the Dikembe finger wave. And he said, no. He says, on time is a myth. No one in life is ever on time. In fact, people in life are either early or they're late. No one is ever on time. And I went home that night and I said to myself, that same reasoning applies in business and marketing. No one here in this room ever just meets the expectations of a customer or an employee. You either exceed their expectations or you fall short. And I went home that night on a quest, and I wanted to look for companies that didn't focus just on the eyeballs and the earlobes, but actually focused on their customers and their employees to do the little things that get to the heart of those customers and employees. Now, a little bit of trivia here. The distance between the stem of your brain and the top of your heart is exactly 9 inches. Now we're going to do something fun here. You guys have been sitting down for a while. I want everyone here to stand up for me. I want you to raise your right hand like this. Now here's the deal. You have, for 85% of the people in this room, you have a built-in measuring stick. The distance between your thumb and your pinky is exactly 9 inches. So here's the deal. I want you to meet 3 people in this room you do not know. You're going to high-five them. You're going to test that theory out. On the count of 3, go. Okay, let's sit back down. So did it work out for literally 85% of people within about 1/8 of an inch? The distance between your thumb and your pinky, exactly 9 inches. I believe in this so much, this is my license plate in North Carolina. Here's the deal. We're going to talk about purpose. We're going to talk about a concept that I call the red goldfish. But here's the deal. I want you to put this into context today. 1, I want you to think about what you hear today. How can you bring that back to your company, your business? But I also want you to look in the mirror because everyone here in this room is a leader. And a lot of it's about defining your own purpose. So I'm going to challenge you to take that hard look up. hard look in the mirror, but we're gonna go and do this in a second. I'm gonna tell you a story. So I mentioned I moved down to North Carolina 5 years ago. And I was making this jump into being an author and a speaker and to try to be a catalyst for change. And a friend of mine said, you need to talk to this guy, Mark Levy. And so Mark Levy is literally kind of the author whisperer. He's worked with people like Simon Sinek, Marshall Goldsmith, David Meerman-Scott, Callie Yost. And so I engaged with Mark, and we started to talk about my platform. And he really spent a lot of time with me on my personal backstory, kind of my reason for being. And he told me a story that I'll never forget that really cemented something for me. And he told me this story about one of his clients, and his client was a financial planner for small business. In fact, his name was Ed. And Ed had come to Mark because he did some speaking. He wanted to try to get more clients. And Mark said, well, how do you get clients? He said, I put on these seminars about once a month. He says, I'll typically put about 40 people in the room. And he says, at the end of the seminar, he says, I'll make the pitch. And we've all heard this before. At the end, he says, look, if anyone here in this room wants to do a 1-hour free consultation, come see me afterwards. Mark says, well, how do you do? He says, well, if I put 40 people in the room, he says about 3 or 4 will come up and take me up on the offer. So Mark says to Ed, he says, well, why do you do financial planning for small business? And he said, when I was 12 years old, my parents died in a car accident. He says, I was forced at the time to go live with my maternal grandparents. And he says, I'll never forget the moment. He says, I'm 14 years old. I'm sitting in the den. I'm watching TV. And all of a sudden, my grandfather leaps out of the chair. He points at a newspaper and he goes, this is it. Turns out there was a small business for sale. And he said to Ed's grandmother, he says, we've worked for other people our entire life. We want to take care of our own destiny. We want to go out our own. They decide to cash in their life savings to buy this local business. And Ed watched that first year, as many small businesses do, they lost a fair amount of money. The second year, they lost a little less. The third year, even a little less. And he watched just the toil that it took on their relationship. 5 years in, though, they had run out of capital. They had to declare bankruptcy. And Ed watched his grandparents both have to go back and get a full-time job, of which they worked to the day they both passed. And he said to Mark, I became a financial planner for small business because I didn't want to have people go through what I had, my grandparents experienced. Mark said to Ed, he says, when do you have one of those seminars coming up? He says, I've got one in 2 weeks. He says, do me a favor. He says, cut your 90 minutes down to 85. He says, I want you to start the seminar with the story of your grandparents. So sure enough, Mark caught up about a month later, and he said, well, how did it go? Ed said, we had about 40 people in the room. He said, did you tell the story at the beginning? He says, yep. He says, how many people came up to you and took you up on your offer? He said, 37. Why? Because they had understood purpose. I'm going to go back to the context thing. Again, 1, I want you to think about how do you apply it to your business, and 2, look in the mirror as a leader and think, how do I embrace purpose internally? Purpose is so key because what does purpose drive? It drives your values. This is research by PwC. 86%, or 6 out of 7 employees, would consider leaving their job if their employer no longer met their expectations in terms of values. So that's the employee side. How does it work on the customer side? Almost the same thing. 86%. 6 out of 7 customers will decide to do business with a company all things being equal, if that company has values that mesh with their own. I think we're on the cusp of purpose becoming the ultimate differentiator, because something pretty important happens in 2020. What happens in 2020 for the workforce? Millennials become 51% of the workforce. In fact, by 2025, they will constitute 75% of the workforce. And millennials have a much different view of what business stands for. In fact, they don't ascribe to the old view of business. The old view of business was simply this. You had nonprofit businesses and you had for-profit businesses. It was black or white, right? Corporate filing status. Well, now there's no longer black and white. There's a ton of gray right here. What's causing that gray? Things like corporate social responsibility, the conscious capitalism movement, and even benefit corporations or the entire B Corp movement. I think going forward, there's going to be a new paradigm for how we view business. And it's going to be along these lines, this idea that business can be a force for good, but we will simply look at business and no longer differentiate on corporate filing status. We'll simply look at a business and say, that is a for-purpose business, or that is a not-for-purpose business. People are going to want to work for and do business with for purpose. I want to take a step back. How did we get to where we are today? This is really interesting to me. If you go back 50 or 60 years ago, here's the 1.0 version of business. Who came first in the 1.0 version? The shareholder came first. Everything you did was designed to maximize the return to the shareholder. In fact, this is Milton Friedman, who was a big kind of proponent of this movement. He said, the only purpose of business is to engage in activities designed to maximize profit and return. Well, about 40 years ago, I think there was a 2.0 version of business. And instead of putting your shareholders first, it was about putting your customers first. In essence, what was business about? It was actually, you were in the business of creating and keeping the customers that you had. This is Ted Levitt right here. I think in the last 20 years or so, there's been the next level in intuition. And the 3.0 version was this. You actually put your employees first. Because here's all of the value is created by your employees, and here's the simple fact. This is Ted Koine. He said, you can't have happy, enthused customers unless you have happy, engaged employees. Again, I think we're on the cusp of what I would call the 4.0 version, and that's actually putting your purpose at the center of everything you do. And perhaps Simon Sinek said it the best, just like in the case of Ed, people don't buy what you do or even how you do it. They buy why you do it. And it turns out if you're embracing purpose, HBR has done a study, I've seen it as high as a 16x, but doing good is actually good for business. I started this thing a couple of years ago. It was called the Red Goldfish Project. And I started to seek out companies that really embrace purpose. Now you're saying to yourself, all right, well, what's this red goldfish thing? So let me explain it to you. And we'll start with the goldfish first. So the goldfish for me in my entire series of books was inspired by Kimpton Hotels. Has anyone stayed at a Kimpton before? All right, so they totally get the experience. And I love this. If you stay at some of the Kimpton properties, maybe you're getting a little lonely, they will give you a pet goldfish for your stay. program is called Guppy Love. And I love that as a signature thing that they do to differentiate themselves and to do that little extra. But a goldfish for me actually has deeper meaning. Is anyone with me? My first pet was a goldfish. This is me at 6 years old with a lot more hair. My first pet, I wanted it like the county fair. And I was so excited. Lived 3 weeks, unfortunately. But I only thought that goldfish were only so big. And it turns out that the average goldfish is between 3 to 4 inches. Does anybody want to fathom what the world's largest goldfish is? Nearly 20 inches. How is that possible? That would be like walking out of this building and bumping into somebody who's 3 stories tall. How is that possible? Well, it turns out that the reason why this goldfish grows is 5 different reasons. And I'll argue with you, those same 5 reasons apply to everyone here in this room. So we're going to have fun with these 5 things. I've got some books that we're going to give away. If we can tee that up, we're going to have fun with this. So here's the first reason, and we've all heard this about a goldfish, right? The bigger the bowl or the bigger the pond that goldfish is in, the more it's going to grow. So here's the challenge. If you're in business, what would you equate the size of the bowl or the pond to? Raise your hand if you think you know what it is. But not all oh, here we go. Yes. The size of the market. Can you give her? Yeah, awesome. The size of the market, right? The bigger the market you're in, the more room you're going to have to grow. Now, here's the deal. For the second one, it's too easy. No books for you. All right? It's also influenced by the amount of other goldfish that are in the bowl or the pond, right? No brainer. Who are the other goldfish? Your competition. I promise you they're going to get more difficult now. Here's the third reason. The quality of the water that goldfish is in. So think about it. The nutrients that are in the water or the cloudiness that's in the water will impact how that goldfish grows. So think about it. If you're in business, what do you think the quality of the water, that external, what is that? Raise your hand if you think, yes. Demographic? No. Okay, I'm looking a little more macro than that. Yes. Culture? No. More external. Yes. Economy. Bang. Yeah, right over there, economy. Yeah. So think about that from an economy perspective. Those nutrients could be the ability to get capital to grow your business. That cloudiness could be things like consumer confidence. Here's the fourth thing. How you do as a goldfish in your first 120 days. They are minuscule when they're born. In fact, a baby goldfish is a fry, as in small fry. How it does in those first 4 months is key. So if you're in business, what do you call yourself in the first 4 months? Raise your hand. Startup, right here. Winner. That was like 20 people, but we're going to give it to you. Because you raised your hand. I like that. Here's the fifth thing. The genetic makeup of that goldfish. So think about it. What is that goldfish born with that separates it from all of the other goldfish in that bowl or pond? If you're in business, what do you think that is? Purpose, okay, but what is purpose a form of or a function of? How a company is what from others? We're going to give it to you. It was on his lips, right there. Yes, differentiation. And you actually jumped it because I think going forward, I used to think it was just about the experience that you provided. But I now think that purpose is on its way of becoming the ultimate differentiator. And here's the thing. Of those 5 things, assuming everyone here in the room has been in business for 4 months, does anyone have control over the market? No. How about your competition? Not unless you're buying them. How about the economy? Please see me afterwards. That would be great. The only thing you have control over is how you stand out. So that's the why the goldfish. Now, why red? And it's one of 5 colors. The colors originally were an ode to this iconic American city. What am I talking about? New Orleans and its most famous event, which is Mardi Gras. So the first were purple, green, and gold, the 3 official colors of Mardi Gras. Well, why is it an ode to New Orleans? Well, there's one word that comes from New Orleans. In fact, Mark Twain called this one word a word worth traveling to New Orleans to get. And that one word is called lagniappe. Who here is familiar with lagniappe? What is lagniappe? A little something extra, right? So it's Creole, French and Spanish, literally means, and that's how you spell it, which is hard to spell. It's even harder to say. It means the gift or to give more. And it's how do you go beyond just the transaction to layer in a little something extra, as you mentioned. So that's the original around the colors. Now, why red? Red was inspired by, of all things, a rock band, and the lead singer of that rock band, Bono. So Bono, 11 years ago, started the RED campaign. And the RED campaign was simple. He would partner with companies. They would create a version of their products that were red. In this case, this is a Gap t-shirt, the best-selling Gap t-shirt of all time. And a portion of those proceeds would go to Africa. And in the last 11 years, they've raised over $360 million partnering with brands. In fact, I'm wearing an Apple Watch right now that's red. So that's kind of the inspiration. I mentioned I started this thing called the Red Goldfish Project. My co-author, Graham Newell, and I collected over 250 examples. And what I'm going to do is share kind of the patterns or the archetypes that we came across. But I want you to do a quick exercise again. I want you to stand up again for me. And I want you to raise your right hand. Now I'm going to have you high-five someone that you do not know. Once you've high-fived that person, I want you just to go through the exercise of telling that person what your purpose is. Go. Tell me your purpose.
My purpose is to bring more love and peace to the world.
Kids for Peace, I love it. Purpose is to try to get people to think about marketing and their business in a different way, and to focus on the customers they have and the change that they can make, leveraging their business. Thanks. Okay, let's sit back down. Okay, let's sit back down if we can. So my hope is when you shared that with your partner, now you have a grasp of what your purpose is. And now I'm going to show you 8 purpose, or we call them red goldfish archetypes, purpose archetypes. And there's a kind of a reason or a rhyme behind how they're numbered. We based it on Maslow and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So the first ones that you'll hear will be kind of bottom, safety. They'll continue to work their way up through esteem and love, and finally get to the top when we get to number 8 in self-actualization. And so let's jump into it. The first archetype is what we call the protector. And the protector archetype is all about trying to protect what's important to them as a business. Now, each of these have a symbol. So who would be the symbol of the protector? The Man of Steel, Superman. So a couple brands that are protector archetype brands, folks like Burt's Bees, Ben & Jerry's. But the one that we really feel kind of exemplifies this is Patagonia. Patagonia is all about creating a more sustainable world. And one of their red goldfishes is something that they do for their employees. They call it green sabbaticals. And green sabbaticals, if you work at Patagonia, you get 2 months of paid salary to go and volunteer at any environmental organization of your choice. So I love that as a way that they bring that to life. The second type is the Liberator. The Liberator is all about shaking off an old system and reinventing something new, embracing the concept of freedom. The symbol for the Liberator, the ultimate liberator, Moses. And some of the Liberator brands include IKEA, Netflix, Airbnb. The one that we feel represents the Liberator is Harley-Davidson. And Harley is all about trying to enable people's personal freedom through motorcycling. Here's how they bring their creed to life.
We believe in going our own way, no matter which way the rest of the world is going. We believe in bucking the system that's built to smash individuals like bugs on a windshield. Some of us believe in the man upstairs. All of us believe in sticking it to the man down here. We believe in the sky, and we don't believe in the sunroof. We believe in freedom. We believe in dust, tumbleweeds, buffalo, mountain ranges, and riding off into the sunset. We believe in saddlebags, and we believe that cowboys had it right. We believe in refusing to knuckle under to anyone. We believe in wearing black because it doesn't show any dirt or weakness. We believe the world is going soft, then we're not going along with it. We believe in motorcycle rallies that last a week. We believe in roadside attractions, gas station hot dogs, and finding out what's over the next hill. We believe in rumbling engines, pistons the size of garbage cans, fuel tanks designed in 1936, freight train-sized headlights, chrome and custom paint. We believe in flames and skulls. We believe life is what you make it, and we make it one hell of a ride. We believe the machine you sit on can tell the world exactly where you stand. We don't care what everyone else believes. Amen.
Do you think they understand their purpose? One of the red goldfish that we really like is a program that Harley has. It's called the Harley Riding Academy. And what they do is teach people actually how to ride motorcycles. And their little extra of giving back, they make this program free to members of the military and first responders. The third type is the designer. And the designer is all about creating revolutionary products. The symbol for the designer from the movie Back to the Future, Doc Brown, who, by the way, only missed the Cubs winning the World Series by 1 year. Brands that epitomize this, Tesla, IDEO. The brand that we, though, think is the archetype for all designer brands is Apple. You know, Steve Jobs saw the computer, the purpose of the computer, as a tool to advance mankind. And this red goldfish is something that they did around Autism Awareness Week.
My name is Dylan, and I am autistic. All my life I wanted so badly to connect with people. But they couldn't understand, because I had no way to communicate. I get to experience the world in a very unique way. I can see the wind, hear the flowers. I can feel incredible emotions flowing from those I love.
Twin paw, a twin paw. Yes, man, no.
Many.
So many. So many. So many. So many.
So many people can't understand that I have a mind. All they see is a person who is not in control. But now you can hear me. The iPad helps me to see not only my words but to hold on to my thoughts. Having a voice has changed everything in my life. No more isolation. I can finally speak with the people that love me. I can say what I think and let them know I love them too.
Hi, Dylan.
Hello, my name is Dylan Bartwash. We are the reality of our thinking life, and are capable of so much if we just open our minds.
Powerful. Apple has revolutionized the way that we learn, and has truly created a tool that kind of advances mankind. The fourth type is the guide. And the guide is all about helping to help people along and facilitate their progress. So the guide, the symbol for the guide is from the movie The Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi. And for guide brands, here's a couple examples. Khan Academy, D-Lite. The one that we feel represents this archetype, though, is Google. Google's purpose is to take the world's information and make it universally accessible. Here's how they bring that to life. You know, one of the things that Google's all about kind of taking that information and bringing folks together, one of the red goldfish that they do is for their employees. And every week they have a thing called TGIF where they bring the entire team together, and the senior team at Google shares kind of the vision and what's going on at Google every week. Fifth type is the advocate. And the advocates are all about standing up for kind of a tribe. Who's the example of that? From the Hunger Games, the symbol is Katniss Everdeen. Brands that embrace this, folks like AARP, Pedigree, a chain called Mission Barbecue. The one, though, that we really feel is that advocate is Panera. And Panera is all about standing up for those that have food insecurity and try to get people to think differently. This is a little bit of their effort and Red Goldfish called Panera Cares.
Thank you very much for being a part of us.
At Panera Bread Company, the nation's best-performing restaurant chain,
Thank you so much.
the breaking of bread with customers is an opening day tradition.
Some people cut a ribbon. We share bread.
But what's happening at this Dearborn,
wanna take
Michigan
1
store
minute
is
and tell you what we're
decidedly
doing here at the
non-traditional.
We made a decision to take this store and literally give this store to the community.
To make sure everyone gets a meal even if they can't afford one.
Panera Cares, as it's called, doesn't list prices on its menu board.
Thank you very much.
It suggests donations instead.
You just leave more or less in the donation box.
The pay what you can concept is founder Ron Shake's way of offering more than a simple handout to those in need.
I'm only working part-time right now, so on days that I can afford it, it'll be great, and on days that I can't, I'll definitely take use of it.
This isn't a soup kitchen. It isn't a homeless shelter. It's a cafe of shared responsibility.
But for some customers, the new concept can be difficult to grasp.
What difference does it make if I pay $3.70 or $4 or if I paid you 25 cents?
In order for this experiment in human nature to work, customers able to pay
I'm just going to do a large coffee.
have to sometimes be willing to donate more than their fair share.
That was the big risk here. Will the community step up and take on shared responsibility?
This Dearborn location is the company's second such store. The first, which opened 7 months ago in St. Louis, is doing better than skeptics predicted.
Financially, it is working. We're making enough money to become self-sustained. We're able to pay the labor, the food, the rent.
In St. Louis so far, 60% of customers are donating the suggested amount. 20% are donating more, 20% donating less. Shake says a restaurant's location is key to staying afloat.
We have to be in communities in which there are both people that can sustain it and people that can benefit from it.
Some companies do good to capitalize on the holidays or to clean up after a PR nightmare. But marketing experts say what Panera is doing makes no business sense, which could be business genius.
The best kind of PR is getting caught in the act of doing something good. And this is a classic case of that.
It's easy to get behind feeding your neighbor.
And it's that appetite for giving
Enjoy.
that Panera is counting on to help them give back. Cynthia Bowers, CBS News, Dearborn, Michigan.
I got a chance to visit the St. Louis location, which is in Clayton. Pretty powerful example of how they give back, and I love that as a little extra. All right, the sixth one is what we call the Challenger. And the Challenger is all about trying to inspire people towards transformative action. And so the symbol for the Challenger from the movie Gladiator, Maximus. Brands that embrace the Challenger mindset, Lego, Barbie, New Leaf Paper. But the one that we think is kind of the prototypical one is Nike. Nike believes that if you have a body, you are an athlete. And they want to inspire you to be a better version of yourself. Here's an example of that.
A few years ago, I would have had trouble walking up this hill. I smoked, I drank, I was fat, and I hadn't done a lick of exercise in my life. So I started jogging. Who says you can't run away from your problems?
I love that. Who says you can't run away from your problems? One of the things that Nike does, a lot of the work that they do through their apps are designed to help people, inspire them towards being a better version of themselves. The seventh type is what we call the Unifier. And the Unifier is trying to inspire individuals towards a movement. They're trying to be a leader that's out there. The symbol for the Unifier from the movie Braveheart, William Wallace. Brands that embrace the Unifier archetype, folks like TerraCycle, Fennegreen, Revolution Foods, but we think the one that's kind of at the forefront of it is Whole Foods. Whole Foods is all about trying to create leadership and redefining food retailing.
It's really important to me that people are out there doing good in the world while they do business. It's like whole body, whole life. Like it encompasses your way of life.
I put my faith and trust in Whole Foods that they're going to give me the best products that are out there.
They have a lot of integrity behind what they have in their store. You feel that. The excitement of just sort of knowing that people get it, you know?
You know the company's dedicated to a good cause, and the people that work there are all dedicated to a good cause.
It's easy to support a company that has the same values that I do.
Right. And one of the red goldfish that Whole Foods really embarks on is really trying to define and redefine how people do food labeling going forward to get more clarity. Last type is what we call the master. And again, this is at the top of kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. These are all about trying to transform lives and ultimately change the world. The symbol for the master, does anybody want to guess who the ultimate master is? Who said Yoda? This is yoga kicking it this summer on the beach. Yeah, so brands that fit this master archetype, folks like Tom's, Grayston Bakery, even CVS. The one that we feel exemplifies it is Warby Parker. And Warby Parker, similar to Tom's, has that simple buy one, get one, give one, but they're also trying to redefine the market. And we don't realize how powerful a simple thing like eyewear can be. If you're elderly, it can restore your dignity. If you're a kid, this may be the only thing that stands between you and getting an education. And they've done a great job not only with the buy a pair, give a pair, but they actually work to actually set up distribution and suppliers. So it's just not a handout, but more kind of a hand up. So that's the 8 types. My hope is there may be 1 or 2 of these types as you think about your own purpose that you relate to. Now, I'm going to be around pretty much all day today through the cocktails. And I'm going to wrap this up here in 2 minutes. So I'm going to say this. Find me if you have a question. I'm more than happy to tell you a little bit about the project or answer anything. You know, I tell people that you need to do the little extra that brings it to life. And I tell people I have to do it myself. So here's my gift to everyone here. If you go on Amazon today, and I'll make sure we have this on the app, you can download the Red Goldfish for free. So I worked this out with Uncle Jeff. You have till midnight tonight because they're up in Seattle, so they're aligned with you. You don't need a Kindle. You can simply get the Kindle Reader app. So as long as you have an Amazon account, you can get the book. And again, that's my gift to you. So my hope as I leave here today, you're thinking a little differently about your own purpose. And my hope as you go through the rest of the day, you start thinking about the little actions that you can take to bring your purpose to life. And my challenge is to you to think about what's the signature thing that you do? What's your version of Panera Cares or the Harley-Davidson Riding Academy? What's the little thing that you do to bring your purpose to life? And I hope you're going to ask yourself, what's our red goldfish? Thank you, guys.